genre.
Hello and welcome back to the Doctor's Companion presents Doctor Who, The Long Way Round, the weekly podcast where we review and discuss every episode of Doctor Who, one doctor at a time. I'm Nick Jimenez.
I'm Scott Corelli.
And I'm Cass Fredrickson.
And today on the show, we'll be discussing the Pandorica Opens and the Big Bang, the 11th Doctor's 10th story, and a seminal moment in Who history. Would you both agree?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Indeed.
Hoostery, if you will.
Hoostery. Yeah, so Pandorica Opens, Big Bang. These episodes aired June 19th and June 26th, 2010. And the longest wait, I think, ever. Well, no, that's not true. I think the longest wait is the regeneration cliffhanger from series 4. But this is pretty bad too. I feel like in a lot of ways this story is Stephen Moffat trying to compete with the series 4 finale in a lot of ways. Because I think structurally he does a lot of similar things in different ways. Than what Russell T Davies did, which is like, bringing back a bunch of returning favorites and stuff like that, in more of a plotty, timey-wimey way than Russell T Davies being like, we're all one big family.
Right.
Yeah, Russell T Davies took the Fast and Furious method with Series 4 versus Moffat was just like cameos for all. It's all connected.
Yeah, it's less like we're one big family and more like we are all pieces in this large machine that's been gestating from the beginning, and now you're going to see how it all plays out.
Indeed. So this was, of course, written by showrunner Stephen Moffat and directed by Toby Haynes in his Doctor Who directorial debut. Toby Haynes, who has probably the greatest director run of all time on the show, because he would do these 2 episodes, follow this up by doing A Christmas Carol, and follow that up by doing Impossible Astronaut Day of the Moon. Just boom, 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 boom in a row. Just just absolutely wrecks house, and then never comes back, never returns. That's it. Wild stuff. So the way this episode came about is I don't know, I'd call it mildly interesting. So Moffat generally, like the plan was that like, oh, we'll do this at the end of the production block, it's the finale, obviously, like everybody wants to know what's going on so they know how to play all of this and whatnot. Immediately upon planning that as the schedule, that schedule was rejected from the BBC back to him because they were like, have you counted how many visual effects are in the finale? They're going to need a lot more time than what you are giving them to finish this. We cannot shoot this last. We need to shoot this like somewhere in the middle of the season. And he was like, oh, okay, well, I should probably finish the scripts then. So he basically went into like script writing hibernation. Let's see, was this December of 2008 that he did this? Yeah. So in December of 2008, he like writes all of this finale, and rushes it out and gets it done, and has to like connect. He had to figure out the whole season so that he could write this early so that they could start prepping it already. And that was not the plan, but that's what he had to do. And as a result of that, I think that he has said, like, that's one of the reasons why this connects so strongly to the rest of the season, because he just got to make up a bunch of shit and then retcon it without anyone knowing that they were retcons, because those episodes hadn't been written yet. So he basically like pre-set up all of the payoffs that he wrote into the finale that was written earlier than the rest of it. And I feel like later on, he probably regrets not doing that with every season of his show.
Yeah.
Because it works so stupid well. I mean, this episode pays off like a slot machine. And I don't think any of his finales after this quite pay off to this extent ever again. Probably because they were written in order. So anyway, so he does this. They hire Toby Haynes, who I believe before this was primarily, he was either a theater director or a commercial director. I don't remember which one, but this is sort of like one of his first like major things, I believe. Let me double check that. Yeah, okay. So he had directed some TV before this. But this was definitely the first time that he was on. He was working on Doctor Who. He had directed, I guess, a couple of episodes of like Being Human, which is probably how he got the Doctor Who connection. In any event, this sort of like blew him up pretty big, and then he has been attached to like a bajillion movies since this run of 5 Doctor Who episodes, none of which have gotten off the ground. I believe currently he is attached to the new Star Trek movie right now.
Oh, wow.
The one that is does not feature any of the original crew. Like it's going to be a brand new crew in this. It's like a brand new movie character crew of a Star Trek movie series, which is really cool and something I've said they should be doing for a long time. So I hope that one actually comes to fruition, because I would love to see what a Toby Haynes movie looks like. But so far it hasn't happened.
The last thing I remember him directing, or like he directed episodes of that His Dark Materials show from a few years back.
No, he did not. You're mixing him up with somebody else, I think. He directed Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell.
That's the thing I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah, he directed all of that. He also directed 6 episodes of Andor.
Nice.
And he directed 2 episodes of Black Mirror, one of which was the USS McAllister episode, which was the Star Trek riff, with Jesse Plemons, a very good episode of Black Mirror that is certainly depressing, because it's Black Mirror.
Yeah.
He also directed Demon 79, which I have not seen, but I know you have.
That's a good
Nick,
one,
and you really like that one. So really great director. Really excited to see what he does in features. But for this, he was brought in, and I think the reason why Stephen Moffat was like, I'm keeping you around for as long as humanly possible until I overwork you to the point that you never want to come back. I think that the reason for that is because, Moffat wanted to, again, have all of these ties back to these other episodes in the story. And also, he very, very much wanted a scene from an earlier episode to turn out to be a scene that was actually from the Doctor in the finale's perspective, and you don't know it at the time, but then, you circle back, and that's the scene in Flesh and Stone, obviously, the jacketless Doctor scene. And to do this, he had Toby Haynes basically hang out in every single production at some point for every episode. And after that episode wrapped, they would do one extra day or a few extra hours where he would direct whatever the scene was from the finale that would feature those characters. So he directed, a scene during The Beast Below. He directed a scene during Vincent and the Doctor. He directed a scene during Victory of the Daleks. Just sort of like went for it and was available for all of it and kept track of all of it, and then turned in this incredible finale. And Moffat was like, yeah, no, you're going nowhere. I can't believe you pulled all that off. So yeah, you and I are buddies now, at least for the next 5 episodes. So yeah, I mean, that's basically it. I mean, there's nothing crazy happened outside of like the way that it was written and directed, which is just so bizarre. But it all worked out. So yeah, good stuff. Toby Haynes and Moffat really, turned in one of the best Doctor Who finales, I would say, in the show's history as a result. Really incredible stuff. To this day, the speech in Pandorica Opens is the like go-to monologue for fans to hand any other Doctor at a convention and have them perform it. I think they've all done it at this point. So yeah, there's like videos you can find on YouTube of like every classic Who Doctor doing that Pandorica speech.
That's cool.
Have you never seen any of those?
No.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think the best one is probably Sylvester McCoy doing it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Sylvester McCoy's version of it is really good. Some of them are a little half-assed because they don't even know what they're reading.
Right.
They're just kind of like doing a dry reading. But yeah. I think the only one who hasn't done it at this point, I believe, is Christopher Eccleston, because why would he?
Yes.
He will take a swing at anyone who approaches him with like
right. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, that's it. Pandorica Opens, Big Bang.
What did we all think about it this time, revisiting?
The way you said it, like in one breath, Pandorica Opens, Big Bang.
Oh, that reminds me. I forgot one element, which is such a stupid Stephen Moffat thing, which I've never known this to be a thing. But apparently the titles of these episodes are meant to be a pun about Amy getting pregnant with River, which is going to be the storyline of next season. It was like it's the Big Bang being called the Big Bang.
Boo.
Is a pun. Yeah.
God.
Big boo. Big time booze. Big
Boo.
time booze. But yeah, he thought he was so clever.
Has he confirmed that, or is that just like?
Yeah, that's confirmed. Yeah.
Fuck you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he couldn't confirm it at the time because he
Right,
didn't want anyone to know.
yeah,
But like
yeah.
later, he did confirm. Like, yeah, that's a pun on a pun / hint of the storyline in season 6.
Boo.
Yeah,
Just a fun little joke for him.
there's a fun little joke for him.
Pandorica Opens, the Big Bang.
Yep.
Well, never gonna think about that the same way again.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
That's so cursed. Anyway, screw this episode. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. But also, I mean, Pandora, there's secrets in there.
Yeah, I guess.
Lots of secrets
Yeah.
that we're going to find out next season.
In the Pandorica.
Sure is a box.
Yeah. Jesus.
God, now I'm like, every part of that hits different now. Because they hide Amy inside of the Pandorica, and then her past self opens the Pandorica, and it's an older version of herself being, hey kid, now it's going to get really fucked up from here on out. Hold on to your hat.
And it's like, yeah, no, totally right. 100% correct.
I hate that
is
so
true.
much.
As soon as I read that, I was like, oh, they're going to hate this.
God damn it.
Can I
And
ruin
this-
this finale for them? The
Apparently.
answer is yes.
Rory guarded the Pandorica for 2,000 years.
God damn
He
it! I hate
allowed
that
no
too.
one else to enter.
No. Oh my god, I'm like losing my mind. That's so cursed.
Uh,
Oh my god. Well, prior to finding that out, I was gonna say that this is even better than I remembered it being.
mhm.
Which is like, I don't know. I feel like Stephen Moffat writes really good first episodes of two-parters, and then just kind of like he writes himself into like a corner, and then he's like, I don't know how to resolve this. We're just gonna kind of tumble through it. But like, and it makes sense that because he wrote it in the middle of the season, like the plotting and like the like paying everything off in both parts 1 and 2 is like really
Mhm.
well done.
Yeah,
Like, impressively so.
absolutely.
Yeah. I think I agree with Cass. I think watching this the way that we watch Doctor Who for this show is, we hit them in order and we sort of build up every season and we go from 1 to 12.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And so I mean, I vividly remember the hype I felt watching this play out for the first time when Doctor Who was just something I had been watching for like the past 4 or 5 years, I guess.
Mhm.
But now, like for, that iconic speech that he has, I think at the time, I think there were even maybe times when there's been some criticism to that speech of like, oh, that is the ultimate example of like Eleven's hubris and blah, 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 blah. But like watching it now after like hitting each Doctor and like him building on his legacy and his experience, and now every single word has so much more gravity to it because
Mhm.
it feels like he's earned that respect and fear from
Mhm.
all of these aliens, and it's like, oh man, like what a character the Doctor is.
Yeah, I just think all of like once you've watched Classic Who, I just feel like all of the stuff that Moffat gets criticized for, like you're talking about, like with the speech, just doesn't. None of the criticism works anymore because you're
Mhm.
like you're right there with him. You're like, yeah, no, he has defeated a lot of monsters and a lot of stupid plans, and yeah, he is kind of really good at this. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. It's I just think it works really well. I think I really like that speech. I like the even more smug one better personally. Which is the one from 11th Hour. The I am the Doctor speech.
Mhm.
I've always thought it was like I was always surprised when people were like, "Oh man, the best speech is in series 5." And I was like, "Yeah, I know." When he's like, when you see him as the Doctor the first time in his new outfit, and they're
Uh-huh.
like, "No, Pandorica," and I was like, "Oh,
No.
really?"
No, I
Yeah.
agree with you. I agree with you. Like I mean, like I love 11th Hour, and I feel like Pandorica is building on that first speech where you run through all of the classic Doctors, and then he steps into the like
Yeah.
he like you feel like the weight.
I just got chills from you mentioning.
Yeah,
that.
like
I
it's
was
so good. Like,
yeah.
and you feel the
Yeah.
weight of this character, and I feel like Matt Smith does such a good job of like bringing all of that in this Pandora. So I feel like the speech here pays off what like the first episode.
Yeah.
Like emotionally.
My personal favorite 11 speech that I feel like gets overlooked a lot because it's from a pretty flawed episode, but I love his monologue in The Rings of Akaten. It's almost like a mirror to this one because it's so mournful, and he's really getting to vent about how much emotional damage he's gone through the centuries of, and it's like he has enough sadness to kill this being with his lore, and then he just walks away like, yep,
Good session.
I'm a real mess.
I'll be interested to rewatch. I don't think I've seen that again in like a really long time. So, I don't even remember the last time I watched it. To be,
It might have been
perfectly
like for the
honest.
show, like when we
It might have
covered it.
been. Yeah, it might have been. So I'm excited to get to like the latter parts of the 11th Doctor, just because I'm like, yeah, I haven't revisited most of this stuff in years, if ever. So yeah, yeah. I mean, I think this is great. I think that everyone is just so good in these. Arthur Darvill's great. Alex Kingston is great. Karen Gillan, who at this point now, every time we come back to 11th Doctor era, Amy Pond era, it's almost like every time she shows up, like, oh, right, Karen Gillan.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so crazy because she's just such like, I consider her like a movie star at this point. It's so weird to
Yeah.
like now see her on my favorite show and be like, oh, right,
But
this
you
is
can,
what made her massive.
yeah, like you can see
Yeah.
it. Like she's so
Yeah.
talented. I'm really glad
I
that she
know.
blew up, like because like
Yeah,
she's so good.
absolutely.
I think back
and-
to 2000 and baby 2010 us is,
Mhm.
and I just don't mean the three of us. I mean like the whole fandom back in 2010 with our Tumblrs, and like it's like, what choice did we have but to get obsessed with like these rock star movie star performances where not only do you have like Stephen Moffat's like, who's unafraid to write big, cool, sexy, iconic characters, and they just hit the lottery like 5 times by like, yeah, they've all gone on to do such great work in their own careers, but then they were just, yeah, they shot out of a cannon. They were already fully formed almost in these roles. So yeah, it's a treat to watch now.
Yeah. And then that's not to say anything about the only person I didn't mention, Matt Smith, who is just wrecking house in these 2 episodes. Just making it look so effortless. The bit in The Big Bang when he wakes up before he goes on his like journey backwards through time or whatever, and he wakes up on the TARDIS and he's like checking all of his stuff, and he's like jacket, blah blah blah, and he goes to reach for the fez and he's like, I can buy a fez. Like that whole that the way that he does all of that, I'm like, man, I love you so much. Why are you only playing mean characters now? Like, why don't you want to play like a lovable scamp ever again? Like,
He auditioned for Newt Scamander. I think he auditioned for Willy Wonka. I think he was like in the final.
Bro.
Yeah.
Somebody's gotta cast him back in a role like that. He's just, oh my God, he's just so insanely good. And it just looks so effortless. Man, it's crazy. It's crazy how good he is. So anyway, good stuff.
A thought that I had that I know not to, we've hit this point again and again, but just watching this episode, I think like, especially with New Who, it helps to have, I think about RTD and Moffat both really had a sense of showmanship, and like seeing Doctor Who is like, this is the best toy box in all of television, and like I get to play with it.
Yeah.
And really making big crazy. I mean, like this is the opener. My first note I took is this is like an all-time opener, because it really makes you appreciate the journey that you've gone on these past like 10 weeks or so of like, oh, that's Winston Churchill. Oh shit, that's Liz 10. Oh, hello, sweetie. And you're like, oh my God, this is going to be an epic hour of TV.
Yeah. It's such a mood setter. And I love that. Yeah. Oh, one thing I did want to mention when we were talking about the Pandorica speech too, is how you said, Nick, that people criticize that speech because they're like, Moffat's doctors and their, bravado and hubris and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just thinking like, now I'm like taking a step back now, and I'm looking at the 11th Doctor's, like just the 11th Doctor's arc as a character, which is that he thinks he's in his last life. He thinks this is it. And him sort of acting this way feels like almost like he's trying to put up armor of this like false bravado of like, I can't die because if I die, that's it. I'm done.
Mhm.
You know? So like, I'm gotta like, it feels so, like this false bravado and feels so like correct as a choice. And clearly it was not the plan to have the War Doctor, right? But it feels like it in retrospect. It's like he did that and he was like, oh, now I can do all of this stuff in the finale and really pay off this whole thing that I've been doing with this character, and then, deeply humble him.
Mhm.
Which brings us into, the 12th Doctor. And I love that. I just think it's, I think it ends up working really well, I think, in retrospect. So I don't know. I really like
He's
it.
even humbled in this, and I it's been long enough that I completely forgot about this twist, which is that all of Pandorica opens as one big trap.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And like that big speech he had was ultimately like they were just playing with him. Like, oh, he thinks that he scared us, but he doesn't know that he's like traipsing around in his own tomb.
Right. Yeah.
I love because it's so obvious in hindsight, but I love that it's like the doctor's just like, oh yeah, there's this being inside and like nobody knows what it is. And it's like some kind of trickster thing. And I'm like, no, it's you, man. Like everyone is scared of you. And like, I think that's a really interesting, like, for better or worse, like Moffat kind of explores that to like the fullest extent as we continue through Eleven's arc, especially with the pawns. But like,
Mhm.
it's really clever. The way
Yeah.
that it's just like he like hangs a lantern on it, so then like when the twist happens, it's just like, oh yeah, of course, it is.
Yeah.
Right.
Every line has new resonance in that when he's like kind of like caressing it like Indiana Jones, and he's like, what? Yeah, this guy would just come down and just upend planets and whole
Mhm.
civilizations with the snap of a finger, and then he would just leave. The only thing I can really compare it to is comic books,
Mhm.
where you get these writers that have been thinking about these iconic characters their entire childhoods and adulthoods, and now they're able to kind of tilt your perspective and get you to look at these icons in new ways. And like yeah, the Doctor is kind of the storm that just goes around the universe.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I also like, looking back at all of the other like 2-part finales that we had gotten up to this point. And it's so funny that we like literally talked about it like 2 weeks ago, but like not since Bad Wolf The Parting of the Ways has a 2-parter felt so disconnected from each other in terms of like what each individual episode is doing.
About, yeah, or
Yeah. Yeah, where it's like, yeah, no, part 1 is like an Indiana Jones adventure and they're exploring a tomb and they're solving a mystery. And then the next one is like kind of like, I hesitate to use the word smaller, but because it's more about emotion and about like solving this Rubik's Cube in like the weirdest timey-wimey way possible, that it is not like this giant epic adventure, right? It's
Mhm.
very small in that way. And it's just a totally different, it's like the mood shifts entirely. Where there's like a sense of dread and adventure in the first part, whereas like the second part, it's more of like comedic screwball stuff. And just totally different.
With like high
Yeah.
wire, like expert level time travel shenanigans.
Mhm.
Yes. Right. Yeah, it's just fascinating. It's fascinating to think about Moffat being like, yeah, that's how I'm going to do this 2-parter. It's like there's going to be this one, and then I'm not going to like, I'm not going to do that again with the next one. The next one's going to be a totally different thing. That's just fascinating because like the whole point of 2-parters, right? Or is like you're supposed to reuse all the sets and stuff. And I mean, he does some of that, but there's it's supposed to make it cheaper. But he was like, no. We're going to do a finale. We're going to do a finale. Yeah.
Oh, earlier when you were saying about how Toby Haynes would just like stick around during the production block, like that's actually really smart because then they don't have to like rebuild the sets. They could just like,
Right.
yeah, like that's
Yeah.
like really smart.
Yeah. Or like wrangling these actors. It makes perfect sense of like, oh yeah, they just got the actor playing Winston Churchill before he wrapped
Right.
Victory. They didn't have to bring him back and
Right.
get into makeup and the costume and all that. So yeah.
Exactly. But anyway,
One thing I wanted to, I don't think we've ever, there's been a lot of talented writers on Doctor Who over the decades, each with their own unique gifts. And we've been talking a lot about Stephen Moffat's, what he brings to the table as a showrunner, as a writer, but I don't think enough has been said about his ability to just give random shit really cool names.
It's true.
Like at the very beginning when River's talking to the man who's going to become a head soon, Mr. Blue Man.
Mm-hmm.
I think the thing that she has around her neck is called a Callisto pulse.
Mm.
And it's just like, yeah, that just sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every time I see the Blue Man, all I think about is him saying, Doctor Who. Doctor Who.
I hate.
Okay. Well, it's funny you say that, Scott, because like, yeah, like when you were talking about how like what a Swiss watch and how small Big Bang is, and you're like, yeah, then compare that to like A Good Man Goes to War or Wedding of River Song, where we do get the big epic battle stuff that maybe we were expecting to get in this. And I think this is more uniquely, quintessentially Who.
My opinion is that A Good Man Goes to War is fine, like totally solid on its own. It's just that Let's Kill Hitler and The Wedding of River Song are the continuation of that.
Right.
And they're so convoluted and not very good that it like retroactively makes that one seem worse than it is. But I think when you're watching it, it's fine. It's just that like everything after that, the second half of that season is it's pretty rough.
Yeah.
It's rough going.
Yeah. I think the thing that surprised me this time, I think too, is like we see the worst version of it with Clara initially, but like I don't even mind that Amy is like the mystery girl. Like everything revolves around Amy because like it feels like organic, like with the crack in the wall and everything. Like it feels like an actual payoff instead of like I'm gonna hype up this character and use her as a plot device instead of like an actual character. Like I don't know, like I didn't like this episode is so good that I don't even really mind that he does that this time.
Yeah, like it's all a place to, maybe because it is like so concise.
Mhm.
It's just like arguably the whole season, which isn't that, but like the reveal of when we first land in Rome and she's like, oh yeah, it was always my favorite part in history, Invasion of the Hot Italians.
Mhm.
Or like how the Pandora's box was her favorite, and then River finds it all in her room, but it's the room that we first saw in 11th Hour, and it's you even get the actor who played Amelia Pond, so it just feels like we trust the story being told more than with Clara stuff. It's almost like a roller coaster where you're like, I hope this is safe.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will be interested to see. I'm going to go into the 11 Clara stuff. I'm going to try and go into it with both eyes open in terms of like I know where it goes,
Right?
Ultimately, and I'm going to try to like revisit it with that in my mind. Because it doesn't feel great when we like the first time through, but I'm wondering if it'll play differently now that we know where it's going ultimately.
Mhm.
I don't know. I'll be curious to see what that is like.
Right, because like that stuff literally got me to stop watching the show. Like,
It got
I
lots
feel
of people
like-
to stop watching the show,
like,
Yeah.
If this podcast hadn't have intervened, Cass, who knows?
I know, that's insane. I'm like wearing a Doctor Who shirt right now. Like
Cass, this episode, I thought of you, has a pretty impactful line in this episode on your life, where River says, I hate good wizards and fairy tales. They always turn out to be him.
Yes, I was watching this, and like when he and River are riding the horses, I was like, he should have been Merlin. He should have fucking been Merlin.
The horse stuff is so epic. The way it's
It's
intercut.
so good.
It's like a Bond
I
opening.
know and that's another thing. I'm sure I'll say this again. Like I had just thought of it when we get to that episode, like 7 years from now. But the thinking about his final episode, that is Time of the Doctor.
Time of
Is
the
that-
Doctor. Yeah.
Okay. Now with Power of the Doctor, I'm just like there's too many day and name
Time,
and yeah.
name,
So
yeah. Mhm.
anyway, Time of the Doctor, where he hangs out in that place, that planet called Christmas, that town called Christmas, and stays
That
there
planet
for like
called Christmas.
thousands of years and protects them or whatever.
Yeah.
I am just thinking like, man, I get that it's Christmas, but also like, what an opportunity you could have had to just have him be Merlin then.
That would have brought me back, I think.
Yeah.
Just him in a little
like
floppy hat.
especially coming off the 50th anniversary. Oh my
Right.
God.
I know.
Anyway.
Yeah. Especially because he gets really old too.
Yeah.
it's like, Yeah. You can just like have him like age into like Merlin.
it's fine.
basically.
15 will be Merlin. It's fine.
Scott, you mentioned like just how many great little Matt Smith moments there are. One that I had forgotten about is when they're freaking out when they can hear all the ships coming, and it's like, no, there's cyber ships and Dalek ships, and he's like, oh well, this is good. They'll just fight each other. Like that's the whole Dalek still thing. They're so cross.
Yeah. Yeah. I love, that's the other thing that is an underrated aspect of 11, I think, is he does have all that bravado, and I think it annoys a lot of people, the way that Moffat writes that. But what I think they're not taking into consideration is that he has those scenes where he is acting like a total know-it-all, and every time he does that, somebody was like, yeah, no, you're wrong. This is what's actually happening.
Right.
And Moffat loves that. Like Moffat loves, having men be like, oh yeah, I'm a man, I know all this stuff, and then a woman being like, and you're wrong about all of that. Here's what's actually happening. And
Or
yeah, I
another
feel like
another great,
he doesn't get enough credit for stuff like that.
or like in that tomb when he's like, hey Amy, you know how sometimes I have really great ideas and they always work out? She's like, yeah, like I'm sorry. He's like, look at me, I'm a target, and like,
Right.
Yeah.
The stuff with the Cyberman head is still genuinely like horrifying.
yeah. So yeah, these things are so lame, and anytime you can like the show can remind you like, no, these things are actually like really creepy, and like when the head is like grabbing at her with the tentacles, and then the casing falls out and the skull like plops out.
Yeah.
Scary.
Good stuff. It's good stuff.
It is weird though, Cass, like you said, or like both of you said, like now that Karen Gillan is like a proper like multi-franchise movie star, like retroactively watching the show is like almost like training camp for like 21-year-old her of like, okay, this is how I react to stuff that's not really there. This is how you pretend to know what a flux capacitor is.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. This is what it's like acting in a blockbuster. And yeah. And now she knows.
Yeah, especially this first part, like it feels so cinematic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised he hasn't directed a movie yet.
I know.
And possible astronaut too. Like,
yeah.
My God.
Yeah. Like I had the thought of like, it's not a clean break when I reach like peak Whovian, like this is the greatest thing. And because it was we talked about it before, but like the ramp up from like these 2 episodes, sticking the landing, and then gearing up for Impossible Astronaut, Day of the Moon, and like really feeling like we're never gonna die. This is always gonna be this good. This is insane. Like,
yeah,
yeah, special.
Yeah, this like, because I messaged you guys last night when I was watching it. Like this season of the show is the first one that I watched week to week. Like, so this is like peak Doctor Who for me. Like this is like peak nostalgia vibes, is like the like series 5. And it's man, I don't know, like I'm every time I revisit this era, with a few exceptions. I'm like continually surprised at how well it holds up.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, I was not dreading it, but I was like, man, this can't be as good as I remember it being. Like, what if we don't like it this time? But like, of course, it's like super good.
Yeah.
I think it's just that it's clearly written by someone who loves the show.
Mm-hmm.
And so the more we get to know it, the more we kind of like, oh yeah, like, man, this really understands like what makes this character. Like 10 and 11 in particular were really good at making the process of thinking feel really kinetic and exciting.
Yeah, like a superpower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, oh, here he goes. He's going to do something really cool.
Yeah. I mean, it really is like Nick, like you were saying, it really is this sort of like these Toby Haynes episodes. This is like peak Doctor Who. Like it never gets better than this. This is the best the show ever felt as a fan. Which to me culminates with what we later find out is River regenerating in that alley.
Trash
and me just being like jumping up and down, spraying champagne everywhere, being like, this is the greatest fucking show I've ever fucking seen. I'm just like losing my mind. And then I think we got, like, imagine if we went from that directly into The Doctor's Wife. I mean, we would have all felt like invincible, but we go from that instead to like Black Spot, I think, and then The Doctor's Wife.
Yeah.
Sharp drop.
Yeah, just going. that is like one of the sharpest drops I think I've ever felt on this show. Was the end of Day of the Moon and then the Black Spot, and just being like, oh,
when was a town called Mercy?
That was in that weird, like blockbuster season. That was like the 5 final Amy Rory episodes. Yeah,
dinosaurs on a spaceship.
Right. Power of 3. Angels Take Manhattan. Yeah. Not a good season. Not a good season. Not a good batch of episodes.
A bad batch, if you will.
A bad batch. But not in a charming way.
I'm the power of 3. Sorry.
Yeah. I think I would be remiss if I don't say that my favorite quote about writing is in this 2-parter, and it's we're all stories in the end, just make it a good one.
Oh yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Oh, the stranglehold that Vincent's painting of the TARDIS exploding, like that hat on the face. I saw that image. That image was everywhere.
I have a fleece blanket of that image.
Yeah. I mean,
Awesome.
you couldn't even, you couldn't go to any con. You probably still can't go to a con without seeing someone, some place selling prints of that as like a paint, as like a fake painting. Yeah, because it's just like everybody loves it. It's, yeah, I don't know. Meanwhile, I think it would be cool to have the Van Gogh painting of with the little creature in the window.
Oh yeah.
I'm like that. Now that's a deep cut.
I'm glad that all 3 of us are talking about this because like, to kind of to zoom in on the Big Bang, the kind of like payoff and setup of like, Roy being like holding Amy's dead body and being like, oh, what I wouldn't give for one of those wacky old miracles now. Rory, it's me. I'm in a fez and I have a mop. Here's your... And then like the reveal of like, wait, he's holding a mop. Oh, you were holding a mop. It's like, wow. Like I could feel how, energized my brain and imagination was watching the story play out, and how much fun and care the 3 of us have had plotting the finale of Geek by Night, or the final season of Geek by Night, and how much we like making sure every little thing has an answer.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean it's such a good finale. It's such a good finale. It is. I mean, Matt Smith is really, really great in it. Everybody's great in it. But like, just like all of the disparate elements that you're just like, how could any of this connect to everything else? And it just does so well.
The the one thing that I couldn't find an answer to,
Mhm.
and I don't remember if it even comes up again or if it's ever paid off, is when River's in the TARDIS and the screen cracks and then the voice says silence will fall. Do we ever find out who that voice is? Because I feel like it's like supposed to be something, but then it's like never explained in like as I can remember.
Did he know what the silence was at that point?
I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I don't think so, because I think that the idea of it was that he wanted people to think that it had something to do with the prophecy with the crack in the wall, and like
Yeah.
silence will fall will be like, yeah, like the end of the universe, like it ends at the end of Pandorica opens. And I think he wanted everyone to go out like assuming that, and then at the very end be like, gut punch, gotcha. Like, yeah, one of the things is still out there.
Mhm.
But no, I don't think he did, because I think that, he is like, oh, maybe it's these guys. And then it's like, oh, maybe these guys aren't the Silence, and the Silence is this like
Cult.
organization that hates the Doctor, I guess. I don't know. Like, it feels very retconny, and it feels very like, I'm going to come up with this as I go along, and it doesn't quite work. It works as like well as he can, because he's like, all right, I got to wrap this up. And it's like, all right, I guess that works fine, whatever.
Because the voice
but-
is like so
yeah.
specific. So I was just like, is this supposed to be like a callback to something, or like, is this something that we find out later? But I couldn't think of anything.
Yeah. I remember at the time, what I think most fans, including myself, thought was that was like the guy from Amy's Choice, because it was the only episode that doesn't have a reference
Oh, yeah.
in this,
Mhm.
that doesn't have a callback. And I remember at the time there was a lot of fans that were like, oh, it's that guy, and he's going to come back, and then he never did. And maybe that was the plan. Maybe, who knows? We'll see when we get there if there were like alternate plans that Moffat had. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It also reminds me of like the voices in Beast Below a little bit, like the security,
Like the weird
or whatever
clown
those things are. Yeah, the clown
Yeah.
things. I don't know. There was something about that. It reminds me of that. I don't know. But then they like sort of like turn that around next season, and instead of it being this like crack silence will fall thing, it's the TARDIS being like, I'm really confused about like what's going on in Amy's womb. And that's what it turns out to be.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Though, I wonder, okay, wait a minute. So maybe he didn't know what silence was, the silence. But what if the crack is meant to say like, hey, that crack was there because this thing, whatever the silence is still trying to come through. And this crack is saying like, it's still that crack. Like, it's still, these things are related, maybe.
Yeah.
Which in a way I think they end up being sort of still related, right? So
if I remember
Yeah.
correctly, I think like the line silence will fall comes up in like the 11th hour.
right.
So it's just like interesting kind of like seeing the evolution of that. And it like stuck out to me, and because everything else was so tightly plotted, where I was just like, what is this? Like, what is
Yeah.
this supposed to be?
Right. And it's because it's going forward instead of backward, I
Right.
think, is why it doesn't quite work out. And because he wrote this in the middle of the season, he probably wrote that in as a tag for next season. And then next season was like, because he wrote it like a year earlier.
Right.
He's just like,
oh,
it's-
I don't
it's-
know what this means anymore.
I'll figure something else out. Whatever.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Or just changed his mind about what he wanted it to be, or whatever.
Mhm.
And now, time of recording, we're in that sort of similar spot with the show now, where there's all these disparate pieces of like, there's the Toymakers Legions, and there's like
Right.
the boss, like whoever the Meep was working for, that it turns out isn't the toy maker, so it maybe might be some other character who picked up the tooth. What of the tooth, dear listener?
Yes. What of the tooth? Right, that's true. Yeah, I also wonder if that voice, obviously without knowing who he would ultimately cast in that role, I wonder if that voice was intended to be the eye patch lady.
Oh.
Like
Yeah.
that was like the intent, like that character before that character evolved into,
Eye patch
you know,
lady.
who we all know and love as eye patch lady.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Madam something. Madam
Yeah.
Kavorian.
Oh
That sounds
man,
right.
you
Wow.
pulled that out, and I think you got it right. I think that's
Wow.
correct. Wow, good job.
me.
Good work. Yeah, I wonder if that's what the situation was. If it was like setting that up, I don't know. Because the idea too, I feel like there's something. I don't think it doesn't land right clearly, but like I feel like there's something about the Silence being this organization that wants to, if I remember correctly, stop the Doctor from doing stuff anymore. Doctor stuff, right? And so the idea that you have a crack that leads to a prison and an escaped prisoner in the first episode, right? Which is then related to the Silence that, essentially wants to imprison the Doctor ultimately. And then this story being about all of his villains joining together to imprison the Doctor. It feels like this arc is about like, hey, we need to like stop this guy. And, next season is about like, well, maybe we'll just try executing him instead. I feel like he can't escape. He escaped prison, but he can't escape murder. Oh, he escaped that. Well, he can't escape not having any more regenerations. Oh, well, he escaped that too. Damn, I guess we're defeated.
Yeah.
I wonder if that is like ultimately what the arc is trying to do, but it's just a little sloppy toward the end.
Yeah, because I feel like if that was the case, if that's like that character or like the intention, like it seems weird that the leader of this organization is like talking about the organization's downfall, because like silence will fall. I don't know.
Oh, I always thought it was intended as in like the Silence will fall on your ass. Like that, like a threat. Like,
okay.
Yeah, silence will fall as in like, we're going to delete you from the
like
time stream, motherfucker.
Judgment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Judgment will fall. You're
oh,
done.
That's interesting. I've never thought about it in that way before.
Yeah. That's how I always thought. But I don't know. Nick, any thoughts on any of this?
I mean, like you said, fascinated to see how all of this plays on a second go round.
Yeah.
Yeah. For sure.
I was a big fan of there's this moment where, well, speaking of like explaining stuff and not explaining stuff, I think a perfect kind of thing that rides that line is the Doctor's vortex manipulator, which is, for all intents and purposes, a literal Deus Ex Machina. It's a it's a machine that the Doctor has on his wrist that can very herky jerk him across like specific points in time. And he's like, I try not to use it. It's bad for me, haha. And it's like, okay, yeah, this is still Doctor Who. Like,
right.
There's always going to be an element of like, but because of the character and who he is, it doesn't feel cheap. It feels like part of who the character is, It's like, yeah, he's the Doctor.
Yeah.
But I love the moment where he comes and he's been fried by a Dalek and he's dead. He falls on some steps and he whispers something into the Doctor's ear and the Doctor's like, he's dead. And you think it's, even watching this for the first time, it's like, oh, the Doctor's so great. He's so noble and good. And then you find out he was like, hey, tell them that I'm dead. And then send them off as bait. And then I'll get into the Pandorica. And River, who's known the Doctor longer, is like, rule number one, fuckers, like the Doctor lies. And I'm like, yeah. Like, that was what was so fascinating about this dude, about 11, was like, you always wanted, you would find yourself trusting him too much, like the companions.
Yeah.
And like, oh yeah, this dude will occasionally like send you out in harm's way to make the plan go smooth.
Yeah. Yeah.
So going into like, the wedding and all of that, I had forgotten about Amy's tiny little dad, Augustus Pond, like a Washington Irving character.
Yeah.
And oh my god, I mean, like the ending of, for freaking something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah,
it is.
So
it is infuriating to me that people call this out as bad, cheesy writing.
No.
Yes, all the time. All the time. The everybody who loves the Whittaker era, especially like the big time Whittaker fans, they fucking hate this shit. They're like, that is so corny and bad. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
No, that's like
amazing.
It makes me upset how obvious it feels. But he's just like, no, like, I'm going to take this adage that people say all the time and I'm going to make it about Doctor Who, which is, I feel like Moffat is best at. Like, that's in his wheelhouse. Like, that's his thing that he does. And it, like, makes me so angry every time he does it so well because it works so perfectly.
Yeah.
Like, you almost think, like, oh, did the Doctor, like, create that saying for this moment to happen,
Yeah. Talk about moments that, like, when I watched it for the first time, I got 1 second ahead of the show, and I just stood up.
Yeah.
And was like...
So it started screaming, right? Like,
like, ah! Like, because it's just, like, it's so good.
Yeah.
It's such good writing, and it's so satisfying. Oh,
and
man.
it's
Where
not
you're
even...
like, God, I should have saw that coming.
Yeah, and it's not
and
even
I did
like...
1 second before it happens, which is like exactly when you want to be ahead.
Yeah.
You only want to be ahead like a second before the thing you're watching. Because then it's just so satisfying to see it click into place. And it's maddening to me to hear Doctor Who fans call that out as like an example of bad writing from Moffat.
No, this is like him at the height of his power, like, for better and worse.
I know.
And it reminds me of like, when I'm reading like a really good Batman comic or a really good Spider-Man comic or Superman, where they're able to just tilt a phrase and you're like, oh shit, wait, that is, oh wow, like something really magical that happens when we've been living with these characters for so long.
Yeah. Oh, man. It is all of those things. And also just like the fact that he like tells her the story of the whole thing, which is for her benefit in order for her to come to this realization later, but also for anyone watching who doesn't know the full story, if this is their first season of the show or, whatever.
Yeah, and that's another, I'm glad because that is, going back to Matt Smith, like, acing this performance is like, and what you said about the Doctor, maybe 11 viewing himself as like, this is his last blast, is that I became so emotional watching that scene because I thought about all the adventures that we've gone on just this season. And his lines of like, don't you for a second forget that magic blue box. And it kind of blurs that line where it feels like Moffat talking to us about what the blue box means to him. And it made me think about how much just that image and what that noise, what that activates in me.
Right. But the way that beautiful speech where he's talking to her slips in all of the elements of that, just so cleanly and without you even noticing that that's what's happening. Of like, did I ever tell you I stole it? Well, I borrowed it. I was always going to bring it back.
That
And
big
you're like, oh, that's a funny joke. And you just like,
box.
you just, you don't even, it's so good. The bluest of blue. Oh man.
And
God.
like, I think that's like another instance of like the thing we were talking about before is like this person who has spent like most of his life and his like thinking about this show and this character and like finally being able to like play in the sandbox,
Yeah. I'm just picturing like little kid Stephen Moffat like going to his first wedding and finding out about this like something old, something blue, something borrowed,
like
that whole thing, and just being like, that sounds like the TARDIS, because he's just this little dorky kid, and just stuck that in his back pocket for 35 years, and then wrote this
God
episode.
bless.
And then, like going back to like, because I own like the novelization of The Day of the Doctor, and that in prose you get even more of just Moffat having fun with words and just writing stuff that sounds cool.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
when he gets that phone call and he's like, oh yeah, there's like an Egyptian goddess on loose aboard the Orient Express in space. And you're like, what the fuck? This is so.
I was just thinking, like, man, we get there one day.
Yeah,
like, we
yeah.
actually do get there.
Yeah.
It's canon. It's canonized. Yeah, I
Yeah.
thought that too.
Yeah. I was like, that's pretty cool. Yeah. God.
Okay, wait, okay. So one thing that was like, Moffat's really weird because we have to end it there. How horny Amy is for the Doctor on her wedding day.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, Moffat has said, like, openly, he was like, that I don't know what that was. He's like, I thought I was being like like I came from like sexy comedy sitcoms, like that's what I used to write. And he's like, and I was trying to bring that energy, and it just he will be the first to admit that never worked. And it's why he like completely abandons it next season. Because he's like, yeah, I regret ever doing that.
Because it's when in front of all of her family first,
right?
When she's like, you better fucking, and then it's like, what does she call it? Like the in the bushes snog in the TARDIS. And,
Yeah.
And Arthur's like, that's my wife.
It's my wedding too. Yeah. I do also think that, like, I don't know. There's a way of viewing it. I think especially when you look at the rest of like Amy and Rory's story, that is Amy just knowing that, like, she just likes to give Rory shit. And she's just being like playful. She's flirting with Rory by flirting with the Doctor because she knows it drives him crazy. You know what I mean? Like that weird energy.
When you phrase it like that, I'm like, oh, that's big red flag. Like, run, Rory.
Oh yeah, I know.
Well, because
totally.
like in earlier in I think I can't remember which one it is, but there's that part where it's like, oh, you better go up there because right now she's surrounded around a bunch of Roman centurions. I don't know if history could take it. Oh, fuck, happy Amy.
Yeah.
Right.
Get her.
Yeah.
Or there's the one where she flirts with herself, right? It's like a webisode where she makes like another he makes like another Amy, and they start they start to vibe, and he's like, oh no, abort, we can't do this.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, there was just too much of that this season. How I described it is how I kind of retconned it in my head to be okay with it. But
I live in the discomfort.
I don't think that was I just don't think that was the intention. I just try to retcon it. Yeah. But anyway.
I was about to say she's our horniest companion, but I don't know. So yeah, Donna.
Yeah. Also, in terms of red flags, Cass. To be fair, they do get divorced.
That's true, and then they like get back together. I forgot about that.
Right, but they never get remarried.
Right.
It's like Danny DeVito and Rhea Perlman. Yeah,
they're divorced. Like when they get zapped back to the past, and then presumably they get married back then. But
out of necessity.
Yeah, but they are divorced. So
Forgot about that.
Those last 5 episodes are bad. Just across the board.
I remember liking A Town Called Mercy.
That one's okay, but it's only good compared to all the other ones. Yeah. Like it would not stand out as a strong episode had it not been for the fact it's surrounded by some of the weakest shit imaginable. It's like wedged right between like Dinosaurs on a Spaceship and The Power of Three. It's flanked by 2 Chibnall episodes. So of course a Toby Woodhouse episode is going to stand out as a
I forgot Toby Woodhouse wrote that. Yeah, speaking of names from the past.
Right. It's true. He has yet to come back, I think, since then.
So next week
next week we have Listen.
Right.
For the 12th Doctor. another Stephen Moffat episode.
Mm-hmm.
Highly celebrated
Definitely-
episode.
Yeah, definitely a different vibe, but still has a little screwball romantic subplot.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it's probably better executed than Amy just being like, "Man, I am horny with a capital H."
For my imaginary friend.
Yeah. Who I met as a child.
God.
Oh, it was really cute seeing the two Amy's interact, knowing that I didn't know at the time that they were like cousins or aunt, niece, whatever.
Yeah, they're cousins.
But it was
Cousins.
cousins.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's fun. That's cool.
Yeah, it is. It is nice.
I saw that the actress who plays like Amelia is now as
Yeah.
old as Karen Gillan
Mhm.
was when they filmed this, and I have never felt more ancient.
Yeah. Also, she looks exactly like Karen Gillan did in 11th Hour.
Strong
and it is
genetics.
weird. Yeah. Wild stuff, man. Anyway. Oh gosh. Good stuff. I don't
Yep.
know.
Yeah.
I'm
Pretty good.
almost like as hilarious as it is. Like I'm a little upset that you like ruined these two episodes. I know we just spent an hour like talking about how fucking good it is, but like God, whatever. Oh boy.
Yeah.
Dark opens the Big Bang.
He guarded it for thousands of years.
Oh my god! Insane when Amy's at the museum and she's like, eyewitnesses accounts saw a Roman centurion pulling the Pandorica out of a burning building during the Blitz, and there's like a painting of it.
Yeah.
And oh man,
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Big Finish has gotten Arthur Darvill to come back and do like his Roman years.
Like wacky Rory adventures.
Yeah, of
Roman
him as like
years.
the immortal centurion automaton.
Huh.
Yeah, or whatever. Yeah, auton.
cucked by a box.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we didn't even talk about that. The way that Moffat changed autons to not look like autons anymore, and now they're just like people.
Oh, the Nestine.
Yeah.
Yeah. With the gun.
Handgun.
Yeah. I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, I guess I get it as in terms of like upgrading, but also I don't know. I like when they look like mannequins.
I can't wait for the inevitable like microplastics Auton episode.
I'm sure it's coming.
Oh, wow. Oh yeah, like we're all technically
Yeah.
autons.
Yeah.
It's coming.
Yeah. We've all, like, it turns out we've just over the years, we've all slowly been turning into autons as a way of like us, just like a slow burn invasion
Yeah.
of the autons. Yeah.
That's good.
Through microplastics. I wouldn't be surprised if that like already happened in like a Big Finish story or something at some point. There's no way we could be the first people to come up with that concept.
If I am, hire me, please.
Yeah. If you are, for sure. Yeah. Without a doubt. Anyway. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. Check out the Patreon in the link in the show notes, along with the Discord, where you can join a bunch of other TDC listeners and Whovians talking about everything that we're talking about. Really good, fun discussions over there. Really positive crew. Not toxic at all. That is not sarcasm. I think it sounded like sarcasm. It's not. It's great. Everybody's great. And it's I'm just digging a hole at this point.
He's still not being sarcastic. It's all
Yeah, still not being sarcastic. It is the best place on the internet, truly. So check that out. Link in the show notes to this episode. And we will be back next week with more Stephen Moffat with the 12th Doctor's Listen. Bye, everybody.